pain has a way of distorting time. When you are standing inside a difficult moment, seconds feel stretched, heavy, unforgiving. A single setback can feel like a lifetime sentence. A single disappointment can feel like the closing of every door you ever hoped would open. That is the trick hardship plays on the mind. It magnifies the present until you forget the future even exists. It persuades you that what you feel right now is what you will feel forever. And if you are not alert, if you are not grounded, you begin to accept that illusion as truth. But life does not stand still just because a moment feels unbearable. Think about it. Nothing in your experience has ever remained frozen. Joy did not stay forever. Excitement did not stay forever. Even your greatest victories eventually became memories. Yet when pain arrives, we suddenly treat it as permanent, as if struggle has a special privilege that happiness never had. The mind locks onto discomfort and starts drawing conclusions that have no real evidence. This will never change. This is how my life is now. This is where it ends. No, that is not reality speaking. That is emotion pretending to be prophecy. Feelings are powerful, but they are temporary tenants. They move in loudly, rearrange your thoughts, and try to convince you they own the place. But they do not. Circumstances evolve, conditions shift, doors open that you could not see when you were standing in the dark. The danger is not the existence of pain. The danger is the assumption that pain is permanent. Every storm feels endless when you are caught in the rain. Every night feels eternal when you are waiting for the sunrise. But neither has ever defied the laws of change. The world keeps turning. The seasons keep moving. The chapter keeps unfolding, whether you recognize it or not. What breaks people is not always the weight of difficulty. Often it is the belief that the weight will never lift. When someone convinces themselves that their present struggle defines their entire future, hope begins to shrink. Effort begins to fade. Energy begins to disappear. Why fight, the mind asks, if nothing will improve? Why push forward if the road never changes? And without realizing it, the person does not surrender to reality. They surrender to perception. You must not confuse a season with a sentence. A season has movement. A sentence implies finality. Hardship is a season. Pain is a season. Uncertainty is a season. They arrive, they stay for a time, and they pass. But while you are inside them, your perspective determines everything. If you treat the moment as permanent, you drain your own strength. You rob yourself of endurance. You begin reacting as though the future has already been decided against you. Yet history, your own history, proves otherwise. You have already survived things you once believed you could not endure. You have already walked through days you thought would break you. The mind forgets quickly, but your life is full of evidence that difficult moments do not last forever. The challenge then is mental discipline, the ability to stand inside discomfort without allowing it to define your destiny. The courage to say, this hurts, but it is not final. This is heavy, but it is not the end of my story. Because permanence is rarely found in emotion. It is found in decisions. If you decide that pain is permanent, you keep walking. If you decide that pain is temporary, you keep walking. And movement, persistent, stubborn, relentless movement is what carries you beyond the illusion. Do not build a home inside a temporary storm. Do not decorate your identity with a passing struggle. Do not carve your future based on a present feeling. The moment you are living is real, yes, but it is not eternal. It is a frame in a film, not the entire picture. Life changes in ways you cannot predict. Opportunities appear without announcement. Strength emerges without warning. But none of that becomes visible to the person who mentally declares defeat because today feels heavy. You are not trapped in time. You are passing through it. Struggle carries a reputation that frightens people. The moment life becomes difficult, the instinctive reaction is to assume something has gone wrong. Plans face resistance. Progress slows down, obstacles appear, and suddenly the mind starts whispering dangerous interpretations. Maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe this is a sign to stop. Maybe this difficulty is proof I'm on the wrong path. That conclusion feels natural, almost automatic, but it is often deeply misleading. Difficulty is not a verdict. Resistance is not rejection. Hardship is not a command to retreat. Yet so many people treat it that way. They encounter the first sign of friction and immediately question their direction. They meet discomfort and interpret it as failure. They face delay and label it defeat. What they do not realize is that struggle is not designed to stop them. It is designed to shape them. Anything of value demands resistance. Strength does not emerge in ease. Discipline is not born in comfort. Growth does not occur when everything is convenient and predictable. Pressure, tension, challenge, these are not enemies of progress. They are the conditions that make progress possible. Consider the nature of improvement. A muscle does not grow stronger by avoiding weight. It grows by confronting resistance repeatedly. The very force that creates discomfort is the force that creates strength. Remove the difficulty and you remove the development. Remove the challenge and you remove the transformation. Life operates by the same principle. When you pursue something meaningful, resistance is not an anomaly. It is part of the process. The greater the destination, the greater the demand. The higher the climb, the stronger the winds. Yet the human mind has a habit of romanticizing success, imagining that the path to achievement should feel smooth, effortless, free of struggle. And when reality contradicts that fantasy, doubt rushes in. But easy paths rarely lead anywhere extraordinary. Comfortable roads are crowded for a reason. They require little courage, little persistence, little growth. The difficult roads, the uncertain ones, the demanding ones, those are the paths that refine character. Those are the journeys that separate intention from commitment. Struggle is not an interruption of your journey. It is a component of it. What appears as an obstacle may actually be preparation. What feels like resistance may be refinement. The friction you are experiencing may be building capacities you cannot yet see, but will one day desperately need. Imagine achieving your greatest ambition without the endurance, patience, and resilience required to sustain it. Imagine arriving at a powerful position without the strength to handle pressure. Without struggle, success would collapse under its own weight. Difficulty is not merely something to survive, it is something that equips you. Yet misinterpretation is common. When progress becomes hard, many people do not lean in. They step back. They assume that difficulty signals misalignment. They believe that if something were truly meant for them, it would unfold without resistance. But meaning and ease are not the same thing. Purpose does not guarantee comfort. In fact, the opposite is often true. The pursuits that matter most frequently demand the most from you. They stretch your patience. They challenge your confidence. They expose your weaknesses so they can be strengthened. Struggle forces adaptation, and adaptation is the birthplace of growth. The question then is not whether you will face difficulty. That is inevitable. The question is how you interpret it when it arrives. Do you see resistance as a barrier or as training? Do you see obstacles as proof of inadequacy or as invitations to grow? Do you retreat at the first sign of discomfort, or do you recognize that discomfort is often the price of advancement? Because the meaning you assign to struggle determines your response, and your response determines your trajectory. Every person who has ever achieved anything substantial has walked through seasons that felt unfair, exhausting, relentless, not because they were uniquely lucky, but because challenge is woven into the fabric of progress. Struggle is not selective, it is universal. The difference is endurance. The difference is perception. The difference is the refusal to interpret temporary difficulty as permanent defeat. When life becomes hard, do not rush to conclude that you are failing. Being Consider the possibility that you are being strengthened. Consider the possibility that the very resistance testing your patience is building the resilience your destiny requires. Stand your ground, hold your course, let struggle do its work. There is a peculiar thing about strength. Most people do not recognize their own until life removes every alternative. As long as circumstances are comfortable, as long as the routines feel manageable, as long as the world is cooperating, you move through your days unaware of the depth that exists within you. You operate at a fraction of your capacity, not because you are incapable, but because nothing has demanded more. Then difficulty arrives, pressure tightens, expectations rise, uncertainty enters the room, and suddenly you are standing in situations you never imagined you could endure. Situations that test your patience, your courage, your endurance, your belief in yourself. In those moments, the mind trembles, doubt grows louder, fear begins presenting convincing arguments. This is too much. I can't handle this. I'm not built for this kind of weight.
But that voice is not an accurate measurement of your ability.
It is a reaction to discomfort. Strength is rarely visible from the inside. When you are carrying a heavy load, it feels heavy. When you are enduring a long battle, it feels exhausting. When you are navigating uncertainty, it feels overwhelming. None of those feelings are proof of weakness. They are proof that you are being stretched beyond your familiar limits. And stretching is precisely how capacity expands. Consider how often you have survived what once felt impossible, moments that looked unbearable when you first encountered them, days you believed would break you, obstacles you were certain you could not overcome. Yet here you stand, having moved through all of it, carrying lessons, resilience, and experience that did not exist before. You discovered it in storms. Strength is not a loud announcement. It does not arrive with dramatic music or visible fanfare. It emerges quietly, often unnoticed, in the simple act of continuing, in waking up when you feel like staying down, in moving forward when every emotion argues for retreat, in holding your ground when circumstances attempt to shake your confidence. Human beings possess an extraordinary ability to adapt, to endure, to carry more than they initially believed possible. But the mind has a tendency to underestimate this capacity, especially in moments of stress. The presence of pressure creates the illusion of limitation. You feel strained and you assume you are near your breaking point. Yet what feels like your limit is often only your comfort boundary. There is more within you than your present emotions allow you to see. Pressure does not merely challenge strength, it reveals it. When life becomes demanding, when conditions are difficult, when the path is uncertain, something remarkable happens. You begin accessing reserves of patience, focus, resilience, and determination that remain dormant in easier times. Abilities you did not know you possessed suddenly become necessary. And because they are necessary, they become available. That is the paradox of strength. You do not fully see it until you are required to use it. And even then, it rarely feels like power. It feels like persistence. It feels like survival. It feels like effort. Only in hindsight do you recognize the magnitude of what you carried and the depth of what you overcame. The danger lies in trusting feelings over facts, in believing exhaustion means incapability, in believing difficulty means inadequacy, in believing that because something feels hard, you are somehow unequipped for it. Feeling challenged is not evidence of weakness. Feeling uncertain is not evidence of inability. Feeling stretched is not evidence of limitation. Often, it is evidence of growth in progress. Every challenge expands you. Every hardship strengthens unseen muscles of character. Every demanding season increases your tolerance, your patience, your mental endurance. You are not merely surviving difficulty, you are being conditioned by it. The person you are becoming is being shaped in moments that feel uncomfortable. The resilience you will one day rely upon is being built in situations that feel unfair. The strength you seek is often hidden inside the very pressure you wish would disappear. So when the mind whispers that you are not strong enough, pause, reflect, remember your own history. Remember the battles you have already endured, the setbacks you have already survived, the difficulties that once looked insurmountable but are now behind you. Evidence of your strength is everywhere in your past, and the strength required for your future is already being forged in your present. Trust that there is more within you than you can currently measure. Trust that endurance grows through use. Trust that what feels overwhelming today may one day be seen as the moment you discovered just how much you were capable of carrying. Not all pain arrives as an enemy. That is one of the most difficult truths to accept because discomfort feels hostile by nature. When life becomes hard, when things fall apart, when pressure intensifies, the instinct is to assume something is going wrong. The mind searches for explanations, often landing on the most discouraging one, that the struggle is meaningless, that the hardship is unfair, that the pain is simply an obstacle blocking the path forward. But there are moments when pain is not standing in your way, it is working on you. Preparation rarely announces itself with comfort. Growth rarely feels gentle. The process of becoming more disciplined, more resilient, more patient, more capable is not a soft experience. It demands adjustment. It demands stretching. It demands the dismantling of habits, beliefs, and limitations that once felt safe but are now too small for the life you are meant to live. And that dismantling can be uncomfortable. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually clearing. Sometimes what feels like delay is actually development. Sometimes what feels like pressure is actually construction happening beneath the surface. Yet because pain is loud and immediate, we mislabel the experience. We call it misfortune when it may be preparation. We call it punishment when it may be refinement. Consider how anything is strengthened. Raw material must endure heat before it becomes durable. Muscles must face resistance before they grow. Skills must survive failure before they mature. In every arena of improvement, discomfort is not incidental, it is essential. Why would personal growth be any different? The version of you required for your future cannot always emerge from the comfort of your present. New levels of responsibility demand new levels of mindset. Greater opportunities demand greater discipline. Expanded influence demands expanded emotional control. These qualities are not handed to you fully formed. They are built through experiences that test your patience, your persistence, your stability. That testing often feels like struggle, but struggle can be shaping. There are capacities within you that remain dormant until circumstances demand them. Strength that never awakens without delay. Resilience that never forms without resistance. The discomfort you wish would disappear may be activating qualities you will one day depend upon. Without the challenge, the growth would remain incomplete. Without the pressure, the preparation would remain unfinished. This is why two individuals can face similar hardships and emerge with entirely different outcomes. One sees only suffering, the other sees training. One feels only frustration. The other senses development. The external situation may be identical, but the internal interpretation transforms the experience. Pain interpreted as destruction strengthens endurance. When you begin viewing difficulty through this lens, something changes. You stop asking only, why is this happening? And begin asking, what is this building? That question alone shifts your relationship with discomfort. It moves you from helplessness to awareness, from resistance to understanding, because preparation is not always visible in the moment. While you are inside the process, it may look like chaos. It may feel like uncertainty. It may resemble setbacks, delays, unexpected turns. But development is often subtle. Internal adjustments occur long before external rewards appear. Strength accumulates quietly. Perspective evolves gradually. Endurance expands without ceremony. Then one day you encounter a challenge that would have once broken you, and you realize it no longer has that power. That is preparation revealed. The patience you were forced to learn becomes your advantage. The resilience you were compelled to develop becomes your foundation. The discipline forged through difficulty becomes the very trait that sustains your progress. What once felt like an unfair burden reveals itself as necessary conditioning. This does not mean pain is pleasant. It does not mean hardship is easy. It means discomfort is not always meaningless. The experience testing you may also be equipping you. The difficulty frustrating you may also be expanding you. Perspective determines whether pain drains you or develops you. So when life becomes challenging, resist the urge to assume the worst interpretation. Consider the possibility that something is being prepared, that unseen growth is taking place, that capacities required for your future are being constructed in your present. What feels like pressure may be formation. What feels like delay may be alignment. What feels like struggle may be preparation in disguise. There is a quiet danger in surrender that many people never recognize until much later. Quitting rarely feels catastrophic in the moment. In fact, it often feels like relief. The pressure fades, the tension loosens, the struggle that once demanded your energy suddenly disappears, and for a brief period you convince yourself that you have escaped something unbearable. It feels justified, it feels reasonable. It feels like self-preservation, but time has a way of revealing the hidden cost of that decision. Because while effort carries exhaustion, surrender carries something far heavier: the weight of unrealized potential, the persistent echo of what could have been, the uncomfortable awareness that the obstacle you retreated from was not an immovable wall, but a temporary challenge that required a little more patience, a little more endurance, a little more belief. Regret is rarely loud at first. It grows slowly, quietly. It waits until you see someone else achieve what you once pursued, until you remember the dream you once carried with fire and conviction, until you encounter a moment that reminds you not of failure but of abandonment. And that realization can linger for years. Temporary discomfort convinces many people to trade permanent fulfillment for immediate ease. The mind, desperate for relief, exaggerates the difficulty of the present while minimizing the possibilities of the future. This is too hard, it says. This is not worth the stress. This is not worth the struggle. And without careful reflection, that internal argument wins. Yet difficulty is temporary, but surrender can be lasting. Every meaningful pursuit carries moments when quitting feels logical, moments when exhaustion clouds judgment, moments when progress is slow, recognition is absent, and doubt becomes persuasive. In those moments, stepping away appears harmless, even rational. But what feels like a small decision can redirect the trajectory of an entire life. Success is often closer than it appears during the hardest phase. The progress is often occurring invisibly when frustration is at its peak. Breakthroughs frequently hide behind the very barriers that tempt you to stop. The tragedy is not that people fail. Failure is a natural part of growth. The tragedy is that many never discover how close they were because they surrendered too soon. They mistook difficulty for impossibility. They interpreted delay as defeat. They allowed temporary emotions to dictate permanent decisions. Endurance, on the other hand, compounds. Each moment of persistence strengthens identity. Each refusal to quit reinforces resilience. Each step forward, however small, keeps possibility alive. The struggle may remain, but so does opportunity. So does the chance for transformation. When you quit, you eliminate that chance entirely. Relief gained through surrender is often short lived. Challenges reappear in different forms. Doubts resurface. Discontent lingers because deep within there remains an awareness that comfort was chosen over potential, ease over expansion, safety over growth. Nothing burdens the human spirit more than the knowledge of unused capability. Effort may exhaust the body, but regret exhausts the mind. This is why persistence is so powerful. Not because it guarantees immediate victory, but because it preserves possibility. As long as you continue, the story remains unfinished. The outcome remains unwritten. The future remains open to change. Difficulty may slow progress, but surrender ends it. And endings are final in ways struggles are not. There will always be reasons to stop, always justifications, always moments when retreat appears sensible. But history is shaped by those who recognize that temporary hardship is a poor reason to abandon permanent aspirations. The discomfort you feel today may be fleeting, but the consequences of surrender may follow you far low. Finger. Strength is not merely the ability to push forward when things are easy. It is the discipline to continue when stopping would feel better, the courage to endure uncertainty, the resilience to withstand frustration without allowing it to rewrite your commitment. Because often the greatest victories are claimed not by those who never struggled, but by those who refused to surrender during moments that felt unbearable. When exhaustion urges you to stop, remember what is truly at stake. Not just the present discomfort, but the future that depends on your persistence. Not just the difficulty of the moment, but the regret that may arise from abandonment. Endurance is not a glamorous quality. It does not attract applause in the moment. It does not announce itself with dramatic gestures or grand declarations. More often, endurance is quiet, almost invisible, expressed through the simple decision to continue when everything inside you argues for retreat. It is the ability to remain steady when progress is slow, when results are uncertain, when effort feels heavy and unnoticed. Many people admire success, but few truly appreciate the endurance that makes it possible. Because endurance is tested in ordinary moments, in the early mornings when motivation is absent, in the late nights when fatigue whispers persuasive excuses, in the stretches of time where nothing appears to be improving, where hard work produces no immediate validation, where doubt begins asking uncomfortable questions. Is this worth it? Is anything changing? Why keep pushing if the reward is nowhere in sight? Those are the moments that define trajectories. Anyone can move forward when enthusiasm is high and circumstances are favorable. Persistence under comfort requires little strength, but to continue when the path feels uncertain, that is where endurance becomes extraordinary. That is where character is revealed. That is where separation occurs between those who merely desire success and those who are truly committed to it. Endurance is the discipline of refusing to let temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. Feelings fluctuate. Energy rises and falls. Confidence expands and contracts. If progress depended solely on motivation, very few journeys would ever reach meaningful destinations. Motivation is unstable by nature. It is influenced by mood, environment, immediate outcomes. Endurance, however, is rooted in something deeper, decision. A decision does not vanish simply because discomfort appears. A decision does not weaken simply because progress slows. A decision remains steady and firm even when feelings waver. This is why endurance is so powerful. It sustains movement through phases that discourage most people. It carries individuals across valleys where enthusiasm alone would collapse. It transforms long, difficult journeys into achievable realities by replacing emotional dependence with deliberate consistency. Progress is rarely dramatic. Improvement is often subtle, gradual, almost imperceptible from day to day. The danger lies in expecting visible rewards too quickly. When effort does not produce immediate results, impatience emerges, frustration builds. The mind begins equating delay with failure. But growth does not always perform on your preferred schedule. Some developments occur beneath the surface. Skills strengthen quietly. Understanding deepens gradually. Capacity expands without spectacle. Endurance allows these invisible processes to unfold. Without it, impatience interrupts progress before maturation has time to occur. Many abandon pursuits not because success was impossible, but because results were not immediate.
Endurance protects you from that mistake.
It reminds you that worthwhile achievements often require a sustained effort beyond the point of comfort. That meaningful transformation rarely happens instantly. That persistence through uncertainty is not wasted energy, but necessary investment. There is also a psychological shift that occurs through endurance. Each time you continue, despite difficulty, your identity evolves. You begin seeing yourself not as someone who acts only when conditions are ideal, but as someone who remains steady regardless of circumstances. Confidence rooted in endurance is far more stable than confidence rooted in temporary success because it is built on proof of resilience. Proof that you can move forward when things feel heavy. Proof that you can remain committed when doubt appears. Proof that discomfort does not control your decisions. Over time, endurance becomes a source of quiet strength. Challenges that once felt overwhelming begin feeling manageable. Delays that once triggered frustration lose their emotional power. The journey remains demanding, but your capacity to navigate it expands. This is the unseen advantage of endurance. It does not merely help you reach destinations, it transforms who you become along the way. Every significant achievement is at its core a triumph of endurance, not just talent, not just opportunity, but the sustained refusal to stop when stopping would have been easier. The willingness to continue through monotony, uncertainty, fatigue, and doubt. So when progress feels slow, when effort feels unnoticed, when motivation fades, understand that these are not signals to retreat. They are invitations to exercise endurance, to prove that your commitment is stronger than your emotions, that your vision is stronger than your temporary discomfort. Perspective is one of the most powerful forces shaping human experience, yet it is often overlooked because it feels intangible. Two individuals can stand in the same storm, face the same resistance, endure the same hardship, and walk away with entirely different outcomes. The external reality may be identical, but the internal interpretation transforms everything. One feels defeated, convinced that circumstances are hostile and progress is impossible. The other, while equally challenged, sees the moment through a different lens, not as a dead end, but as a demanding phase of growth. The event itself does not determine the impact. The meaning assigned to it does. When difficulty appears, the mind instinctively asks, why is this happening to me? It is a natural reaction driven by discomfort and confusion. But that question, while understandable, can quietly trap you. It frames the situation as misfortune, as though you are the passive victim of an unfair reality. It centers on suffering rather than development. And the longer you remain in that mindset, the heavier the experience becomes. There is another question, far more empowering, though less instinctive. What is this teaching me? What is this building within me? That shift may appear subtle, but it alters your psychological position entirely. Instead of viewing the challenge as meaningless pain, you begin seeing it as a source of refinement. Instead of interpreting resistance as evidence of failure, you consider the possibility of growth. The struggle does not magically disappear, but its emotional weight changes. You are no longer merely enduring, you are extracting value. Pain without meaning feels unbearable. Pain with meaning becomes purposeful. Human beings possess an extraordinary ability to withstand difficulty when they believe it serves a purpose. The same burden that crushes someone under hopelessness can be carried with resilience. When seen as preparation, the mind, when anchored in meaning, reorganizes its response to hardship. Frustration gives way to focus. Despair yields to determination. Endurance becomes possible not because the situation is easier, but because the interpretation is stronger. This is not denial. It is not pretending struggle is pleasant. It is recognizing that perception shapes experience. That events alone do not dictate emotional reality. That within nearly every difficulty lies the possibility of growth, if you choose to look for it. Consider how often immediate judgments prove inaccurate. A closed door that later revealed a better path, a delay that prevented a costly mistake, a setback that forced the development of skills and resilience that later became invaluable. In the moment, those experiences felt negative, unfair, discouraging. Only with time did their hidden value become visible. Perspective allows you to access that wisdom earlier. Instead of waiting for hindsight, you approach challenges with curiosity rather than despair. You resist the urge to declare situations as purely destructive. You allow room for the possibility that something beneficial may be unfolding beneath the discomfort, because often growth is disguised as difficulty. Patience is rarely developed in ease. Resilience is rarely built in comfort. Strength is rarely formed without resistance. Yet when these demanding moments arrive, the instinct is to resist them emotionally, to label them as interruptions rather than contributors. Perspective invites a different response. It encourages you to ask not merely how to escape discomfort, but how to learn from it, how to allow the experience to sharpen rather than weaken you. What you see in a challenge determines how you engage with it. See only injustice and bitterness grows. See only impossibility and effort fades. See potential development and endurance strengthens. This mental framing is not passive optimism. It is strategic resilience, a deliberate decision to interpret circumstances in ways that preserve strength rather than drain it, to extract lessons rather than accumulate resentment, to remain psychologically empowered even when conditions are demanding. Life will not always offer ideal situations. Control over external events is limited, but interpretation that remains profoundly within your influence. You cannot always choose what happens, but you can choose how you understand what happens. And that choice shapes your emotional stability, your persistence, your capacity to move forward. Moments do not carry fixed meanings. Meaning is assigned by the mind. Destiny is not a fragile thing. It does not crumble at the first sign of difficulty, nor does it vanish simply because the road becomes uncertain. But walking toward it, truly walking toward it, demands a kind of courage that many underestimate. Not the loud, dramatic courage that appears in movies or grand gestures, but the quiet, persistent courage required to keep moving in fear, doubt, and exhaustion attempt to negotiate your surrender. Because there will be moments when the path ahead is not clear. Moments when progress feels painfully slow. Moments when the weight of uncertainty presses heavily against your confidence. And in those moments, courage becomes the deciding factor. Fear is a natural companion on any meaningful journey. It appears whenever you attempt something beyond your comfort, whenever you reach for something larger than your present circumstances, fear speaks in convincing tones. It presents rational sounding arguments. It urges caution, hesitation, retreat. What if this doesn't work? What if you fail? What if the risk is too great? What makes fear dangerous is not its presence, but its persuasiveness. Left unchallenged, it quietly reshapes decisions. It encourages delay disguised. It is prudence. It transforms temporary uncertainty into permanent stagnation. Many dreams do not collapse because of impossibility. They collapse because fear successfully convinced someone to stop walking. Courage, then, is not the absence of fear. It is a refusal to grant fear authority. It is a decision to act despite uncertainty, to continue despite discomfort, to advance despite doubt. Courage does not require complete confidence. It requires movement, the willingness to take one more step when hesitation feels safer, the discipline to trust the journey even when the outcome is not fully visible. Destiny rarely reveals itself all at once. Clarity often unfolds gradually. Confidence often grows through action rather than preceding it. Waiting for absolute certainty is one of the most reliable ways to remain motionless. The future does not always provide guarantees. The road does not always offer detailed maps. Those who move forward are not necessarily those who possess perfect assurance, but those who accept uncertainty as a natural condition of progress.
Every significant pursuit contains unknowns.
Every meaningful ambition carries risk. Every transformative journey demands faith in movement rather than comfort and hesitation. There is also a misconception about courage that deserves correction. Courage is not loud bravado or reckless disregard for fear. It is steady, deliberate persistence. It is the quiet voice that says, I am afraid, but I will proceed. It is a calm resolve that remains when emotions fluctuate. It is strength expressed through consistency rather than spectacle. Small acts of courage accumulate, each step taken despite doubt strengthens identity. Each decision made despite fear reinforces confidence. Over time, what once felt terrifying becomes manageable, not because fear disappeared, but because courage expanded. The alternative is far more costly: to allow fear to dictate direction, to permit uncertainty to justify inaction, to remain trapped in hesitation while opportunities pass and potential remains unrealized. Safety purchased through avoidance often produces a deeper discomfort, the awareness of paths not taken, of capabilities not tested, of destinies left unexplored. Regret is frequently born not from failure, but from inaction. Destiny demands participation. It requires the willingness to move, even when conditions are imperfect. To trust that clarity emerges through progress. To accept that discomfort is often the companion of growth. To understand that hesitation, while comfortable in the moment, can silently erode possibility. Courage is not a single dramatic decision. It is a repeated choice, a daily commitment to forward movement. A consistent refusal to retreat simply because the road is demanding. There will be doubts, there will be fears, there will be moments when exhaustion attempts to persuade you that stopping is reasonable. But destiny does not yield to momentary emotions. It responds to sustained commitment, to resilience, to the quiet determination that continues advancing regardless of temporary discomfort. Stand your ground when fear speaks. Trust your direction when doubt appears. Because the path to anything meaningful has never been free of uncertainty. And those who arrive are not those who felt no fear, but those who refuse to be ruled by it. If these words connect with the battle unfolding in your own mind, if you are standing at the edge of hesitation, wrestling with fear and uncertainty, let this settle firmly within you. Take the step anyway.